I wonder if any of our viewers have ever experienced playing with a spirit board or glass spirit game. The story I am going to share today is a chilling event involving a group of teenagers who decided to test their courage in a place that locals commonly refer to as the Old Cemetery. Due to the recklessness and arrogance of the story's main character, she ended up facing the consequences of her actions that disrespected the sanctity of that location. This tale is titled The Old Cemetery. Before we dive into our scary story, we would like to ask everyone to like and subscribe to support us in continuing to bring you more terrifying tales in the future. For today, let me take you through the story of Nan, which she shared with her friend Kim. This incident happened to Nan when she was about 16 or 17 years old. The story begins when Kim, after accepting a dare to stay overnight in an abandoned hotel, started looking for more haunted places in the province. Eventually, he had a conversation with Nan. During their chat, Nan told him, "Did you know there's an old cemetery here in this province?" When Kim heard that, he dismissed it, saying, "If it's just an old cemetery, it probably wouldn't be that scary. The place might have been cleared out and repurposed by now." But Nan countered, "No one has ever done anything with that place. Even though it was just an ordinary area in the beginning, people turned it into a cemetery." Nan went on to explain that this wasn't a cemetery like the ones we're used to seeing. Instead, it became one due to the large number of deaths that occurred in that area. Locals started calling it a cemetery. Nan revealed that in the past, the site had been a sand dredging facility. Most of the workers were undocumented migrants from neighboring countries. Because they were illegal laborers, disputes among them often escalated into fatal violence. The gruesome aftermath was that the bodies were frequently disposed of by burning them with rubber tires to erase any evidence. Over time, operations at the facility were disrupted by various incidents, forcing the business to shut down. The area then became known as the Old Cemetery because locals began finding bodies of missing people there. Residents who had been missing for 3 or 7 days, for example. Searches in the area would often lead to their remains. Some cases involved women who had been raped and murdered, their bodies discarded in that same location. Not long after, someone obtained a concession to turn the area into a mine. It became a fairly large operation, employing hundreds of workers. However, the mine was shut down after only a short time due to various difficulties. Once abandoned, rumors about ghostly sightings in the area began circulating widely. However, no one had seen anything firsthand, so the stories remained just that, stories. Nan added that the site was located near a road with no streetlights at all. The darkness was so complete that if two people stood on that road at night, they wouldn't be able to see each other's faces. Drivers traveling the road at night often reported seeing a man sitting by the roadside. This man, they said, wore a checkered shirt and long pants. He sat hugging his knees with his head resting on them. When vehicles passed by, some drivers claimed they heard footsteps running behind them. Upon turning around, they would see the man chasing after them. These accounts became so widespread that Nan and her friends, curious and emboldened, decided to test their courage at this infamous site. Nan then began recounting her chilling experience at the location to Kim. At that time, Nan and her friends decided to organize a group of 7 or 8 people to visit the old cemetery. Back then, the trendiest and easiest way to communicate with spirits was through a coin seance. On their first visit to the old cemetery, they searched for a suitable spot and quickly set up to play the coin seance. As they gathered around and started the session, everyone noticed the coin actually moved. They each kept a close eye on the others, trying to figure out if someone was secretly pushing the coin. After finishing their session, they returned home. While riding back, they speculated on who might have moved the coin. However, they didn't take it too seriously, thinking it was just a fun outing. One strange thing they noted was how accurately the coin answered their questions. Yet, at times, the coin would spin aimlessly, as if trying to convey that it couldn't find an answer. Nan believed that one of her friends must have been pushing the coin deliberately. Later, the group discreetly asked one another if anyone had moved the coin during the session. Everyone denied it, instead blaming others, saying, maybe it was so-and-so who pushed it. Later on, Nan's group heard that playing the coin seance wasn't as effective as another method, playing the glass seance, a ritual involving a glass. This method was said to be far more potent. It involved not just summoning spirits with incense, but also trapping the incense smoke in the glass before starting the session, supposedly making it more effective than the coin seance. Intrigued by this, the group decided to return to the old cemetery, this time intending to play the glass seance. During the session, one of their friends noticed people walking back and forth nearby and even heard voices conversing in what didn't seem to be Thai. This friend assumed there might be illegal migrant workers hiding in the area but didn't share this observation with anyone else. They thought perhaps the others had noticed it too and that it was a normal occurrence there. As they played, Nan, known for her bold, tomboyish demeanor, kept making mocking comments, challenging the situation. Whenever the glass moved on the board, she would taunt her friends, saying things like, "Who's pushing the glass? Just admit it. Stop pretending to know so much about me." Her friends insisted they weren't moving it. Unlike the coin seance, moving the glass with such speed and force while 6 or 7 people touched it seemed almost impossible. This made Nan suspicious, but her arrogance from the start compelled her to keep up the bravado. She repeatedly declared, "Come on, I've never been scared of this stuff, and I don't believe in it either," mocking the ritual in a way that seemed downright disrespectful. That day passed without major incident, but strange things began happening to Nan afterward. Nan recounted that on some days when she was home alone, she would hear footsteps upstairs. She would shout, "Mom, are you upstairs?" But no one would answer. Nan lived with her mother, just the two of them. Sometimes, while watching TV on the first floor, she would catch a glimpse out of the corner of her eye, someone peeking at her from the staircase. This staircase, located to the right of the TV, led to the second floor. She also noticed that her friends started giving her strange looks whenever they sat together. This behavior became so obvious that Nan eventually confronted them, asking, "What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that?" Her friends would just brush it off, smiling awkwardly without giving her a straight answer. One day, Nan went swimming with her friends. In the countryside, it was common for kids to swim in natural canals or ponds. After coming out of the water, one of her closest friends put an arm around her shoulder as they walked back to shore. Suddenly, her friend turned to look at her and let out a startled scream. Nan, confused, asked, "What is it? Is there a leech on my face?" She began frantically brushing her neck and face, But her friend said, "No, it's not a leech." Then, in a shaky voice, her friend added, "Let's talk after we leave." Once they returned home, her friend revealed what had caused the reaction. While walking out of the water with her arm around Nan, she saw an extra arm wrapping around Nan's neck from the opposite side. Alarmed, she turned to check, and there it was, a man's arm. Glancing further, she saw the man himself. He was hugging Nan's neck from behind and even smiled at her. This man had a ghastly appearance. His face was dark and greenish, with blackened teeth caked in what looked like mud. His head was dripping with a black liquid, and a plastic bag appeared stuck to his scalp. Terrified, the friend urged Nan to make merit, a Buddhist practice to ward off bad spirits, and to stop engaging in risky behavior like challenging spirits. Nan, however, dismissed the suggestion, laughing it off. "Are you crazy? This is my favorite thing. How could I stop? I love it when people scream and freak out. It's so much fun to scare them." Despite the warnings, Nan continued taking people to the old cemetery to play the glass seance. Every time they went, the glass moved on the board just as before. During one of these trips, the same routine played out. The glass moved rapidly across the board. Suddenly, Nan decided to remove her hand from the glass, saying to the group, "This is so boring. If you're gonna keep doing the same thing, change it up. Let's just go home. If we keep playing like this, we'll get nowhere." Not even after 20 more sessions. She then stood up and walked away from the group. Her friends, however, didn't follow her immediately. They huddled together, whispering about something, annoyed, then turned back and snapped, "What are you all talking about? Let's go already." Eventually, they got up and followed her out. Back at Nan's house, her friends gathered and collectively told her, "You should really make merit and stop going to the old cemetery. There's no need to keep provoking whatever's there." Though they didn't elaborate, their worried expressions said enough. At that time, Nan was curious about what was going on with her friends. She had noticed several of them saying similar things to her. When she started paying attention to her own condition, she realized that she often experienced unexplained pain in her neck, shoulders, and other parts of her body. Sometimes, when she woke up in the morning, she found bruises on her body. Some of these bruises even resembled handprints, as if someone had been gripping her while she slept. Seeing this, Nan felt somewhat uneasy. However, because she had a bold personality, she was reluctant to show her fear. She told her friends dismissively, "Hey, what's wrong with you guys? If you're gonna talk like this, don't bother talking to me at all. You're such cowards." Her friends only responded, "Fine. If that's all you can think, then so be it. But we're telling you now. We're not going with you anymore." At that moment, Nan remained stubborn, saying to her friends, "Fine. If you don't want to come next time, I'll just find someone else to go with me." She added in a slightly sulky tone, "So, is this the end of our trips together? Is this what friendship means to you?" Her friends, tired of arguing, chose to drop the matter and went home. That night, Nan had a dream. She found herself standing in front of a group of men. These men wore clothes covered in dark stains, and some had gruesome injuries. One man's face was so disfigured that his skull was visible. In her dream, Nan felt intense fear. She slowly backed away until she hit a wall. Then, she noticed one man stepping out from the group and speaking to her in a language she couldn't understand. The man raised his hand and pointed a finger at her, moving it in a circular motion. It reminded her of the way the glass moved on the spirit board during the seances. He kept making the circular motion and speaking in that incomprehensible language. Finally, Nan shouted at him, "What are you saying?" Her outburst seemed to make the man slow down his hand movements. He walked closer to her until his finger was nearly touching her face. Then, his voice echoed in her mind, saying, "I don't understand your language." After that, Nan remembered nothing else from the dream. Nan woke up and couldn't shake off the dream. She wondered if it was just her imagination or if there was more to it. She decided to ask her friends, "Hey, tell me the truth. Why do you keep telling me to go make merit? What's the reason behind it?" Her friends responded seriously, "Promise us you won't go back to that cemetery again, and we'll tell you." Nan pressed them until they finally revealed, "We've often seen a man following behind you. Sometimes when you're eating, we see 4 or 5 other people sitting and eating with you. That's why we didn't dare sit with you. On the day you left the spirit board game early, we didn't follow you because we saw 2 men walking closely behind you. One of them had his arm around your shoulder, while the other turned back to look at us, pointing his finger at us. We were too scared to follow. By the time we looked up again, those 2 men were gone." After hearing this, Nan was annoyed that her friends hadn't told her sooner. Still, being the bold person she was, Nan wasn't entirely convinced by their story since she hadn't experienced anything herself. She told them, "Let me go one more time. If anything happens, I'll take full responsibility for it." Being teenagers, her friends reluctantly agreed to go with her one last time. This time, the seance went smoothly. The glass moved and answered all their questions, which made Nan think the dream she had was just a result of overthinking. She dismissed it, reasoning that the man in her dream couldn't understand her language, so it must have been her imagination. Nan continued taking other groups of younger students to the old cemetery to test their courage. But then, something happened that made her swear off ever going back there again. Nan recalled that during that time, she was part of her school's cheerleading team. The team practiced stunts that were daring and impressive, though the safety standards back then weren't nearly as strict as they are now. Each stunt was performed more for spectacle than for safety. During the time when the incident occurred, Nan had to practice cheerleading stunts daily. Being small in stature, she was selected to be the topmost person in the formation. Each practice session, their coach would stand at the front, supervising and directing the students during training. Over the months of practice, the team had become more synchronized and skilled, and their coach began to observe quietly without giving many instructions. One day, during a routine practice, everything proceeded as usual. When it was time for Nan to be lifted to the topmost position, her role was to finish with a standing pose, arms spread wide. As she looked down at the coach below and prepared to spread her arms, she heard the coach shout, "Fall back and lie down." Nan assumed this was a new move the coach wanted her to execute, and that the base team members supporting her were aware of it. Feeling uncertain, she hesitated for a moment but continued to hear the coach's voice urging her, "Go ahead, fall back now. The music is about to end." Trusting the instruction, Nan threw herself backward with confidence. But to everyone's shock, only a few seconds after she let go, Nan's head hit the ground with tremendous force, and everything went black for her. Nan remained in a coma at the hospital for months. After she regained consciousness, her friends and teammates visited her to ask what had happened. They were puzzled, as the practice had always been error-free until that day. Nan immediately responded, "Didn't the coach tell me to fall back?" Her coach, with a confused expression, replied, "When did I say that?" This led to a heated discussion among everyone present. Finally, one of the base team members, who had been standing closest to the coach that day, confirmed that they hadn't heard the coach say anything like what Nan described. The coach had been silently supervising, as always. Despite this, Nan insisted that she had clearly heard the coach shouting instructions and even swore it to be true. As time passed and Nan recovered, she began visiting temples to make merit, seeking blessings for good fortune. She planned to visit 9 temples in total. At one of the temples, without her even mentioning the incident, the monk remarked, "It seems you've been troubled by malevolent spirits. You've meddled too much in their domain, and you tend to disrespect them. What has happened to you stems from your own words. If you hadn't provoked them, if you had stopped sooner, this might have resolved long ago. But you didn't. What you must do now is observe the precepts, ask for forgiveness, and make amends." Following the monk's advice, Nan performed the necessary rituals, and gradually, everything started to improve. After hearing Nan's story as retold by Kim, I can say that I felt extremely uneasy about her actions. Personally, if I had disrespected a haunted place and subsequently experienced strange dreams like the ones described in this story, there's no way I would ever return to that location a second time. This story serves as a chilling reminder of the importance of respecting places and being mindful of our words. It teaches us valuable lessons about humility and caution. However, these are just my personal reflections. What about you, the audience? What are your thoughts on this story? Don't forget to leave a comment and share your views. Before we part ways today, don't forget to like and follow for more spine-chilling tales in the future. If you're someone who enjoys exploring eerie experiences or ghost stories, let us be your go-to source for delivering haunting narratives to you all.